Hello, my name is Monica Brown and I teach 8th grade U.S. History and Social Studies at Key Middle School here in Houston ISD. Today I'm going to take you through a lesson that is all about the Bill of Rights. We will go through what are the amendments that make up the Bill of Rights and why do we even have it in the first place. But before we get started, there are a couple of things that I would like you to have. You do need to have a pen or a pencil, and you do need to have paper. And if you prefer to write in your journal to take a few notes, you most certainly can do that as well. So now let's take a look at our learning targets. Our learning targets today are that you're going to be able to summarize the purposes for us amending the U.S. Constitution. Secondly, you're going to be able to describe the importance of free speech and press in the constitutional republic. You're going to be able to look at the development of religious freedom in the United States, and we will also analyze the First Amendment, which guarantees us the freedom of religion and basically the American way of life. So now let's take a look at this unfinished Constitution. Your question today that I want you to consider is, why did the Founding Fathers ensure that the U.S. Constitution could be amended? You know, the U.S. Constitution is a living document that can be amended as the nation changes. So why is it that the Founding Fathers made sure that it could be changed? Why didn't they just write it exactly the way they wanted it and keep it closed? So as we consider how we make our amendments to the Constitution, or why we even do it in the first place, let's make a real life connection, okay? So I want you to think about a time when you wrote a story, a poem, or an essay. When you wrote it, did you use the first draft or did you revise it? Probably you revised it. Very seldom do we write something the first time and we're completely happy with it. We kind of tweak it and make a few changes. Well, when you revise a piece of writing, what are you doing? What is the purpose of revising or editing a piece of writing? Well, basically, it's to change it, to make it better. You know, your first draft will never be your best. The Constitution is very similar. When it was written in 1787, it was essentially a first draft, and it can be approved upon or changed as the nation changes through the addition of amendments. So let's take a look at a couple of words here. What is an amendment? And what does it mean to amend? Well, the word amend means to make it better, to improve, or to change it. An amendment is a change to the U.S. Constitution. So today we are going to explore the purpose for amending the Constitution. Why did the Founding Fathers want the U.S. Constitution to be able to change? What is the purpose of amending the Constitution? Well, let's take a look at our reading today. And the title is The Purpose of the Amendment Process. As I read through, I want you to follow along with me. The founders of our country wanted the Constitution to be flexible. They knew that as the country changed, the Constitution might also need to be changed. But they did not want it to be too easy to change the Constitution. The Founding Fathers intended the Constitution to be and to remain the supreme law of the land. However, they also recognized the American society and conditions would change over time in ways that they could not predict in 1787. Since then, Americans have not been reluctant to suggest changes. Since 1789, more than 10,000 proposed amendments have been introduced in Congress. However, only 27 amendments have been ratified by the required 3/4 of the states. What has been remarkable about the Constitution is its ability to change and arguably improve over time as society itself evolves. The history of America is a history of the Constitution being changed to accommodate new political ideas, such as expanding freedom and democracy to more people. Even when Americans were denied freedom and equality, basic freedoms added to the Constitution in 1791 with the Bill of Rights, such as the freedom of speech, press, peacefully assembling or associating with others, and peacefully petitioning or protesting, it allowed Americans to fight for political change. Although slavery was not outlawed until 1865, decades before that, Americans, white and black, in the North had been campaigning against slavery, raising awareness of its evils, publishing anti-slavery newspapers, and even forming anti-slavery political parties. Such political activism guaranteed that slavery would not be ignored as a political issue. Similarly, women earned the right to vote by using their rights of freedom of speech, press, assembly, and petition to campaign for the right to vote. In doing so, they succeeded in amending the Constitution. The history of America is a struggle for freedom and equality so everyone can enjoy the full promise and benefits of democracy. The ability of the Constitution to be changed to adapt to new ideas and beliefs is probably the most important legacy of our government. The fact that over time the Constitution has adapted to reflect new ideas and beliefs so that more Americans have been able to enjoy freedom and equality demonstrates that the Constitution is based on the idea of the consent of the governed. So what is the purpose of the amendment process? Why do we add amendments to the Constitution? Well, first, to make the country better. Secondly, to improve democracy. Third, to extend rights to the people. And finally, to allow the Constitution to change with the time. I want you to look at the images that you see here in this picture. As we talk about this unfinished Constitution, what do you see in the pictures here? Take a look at the picture on the left and take a look at the picture on the right. You might notice on the left you see people, looks like they are in a cotton field picking cotton. Looks like this may have been a time during slavery. If you look over to the right, I see a lot of men that seem to be standing at a booth. It says headquarters opposed to women's suffrage. Suffrage meaning the right to vote. So it looks like these were people that were opposed to women voting. Did you know at one time that people were held as slaves? They were not allowed to have the same freedoms that are guaranteed in those first 10 amendments. And did you know that women at one time were not allowed to vote? But as this unfinished Constitution was drafted, it was revived and revised over the years to make the changes that were necessary to make sure that everyone had access to freedom. We know that slavery is inhumane and it needs to come to an end. We need to pass an amendment that would make slavery illegal. And then women not having the right to vote is completely unfair. So they added an amendment to the Constitution that gives men and women the right to vote. So let's take a look at the First Amendment. All right, so let's look at part 2 of our lesson. Here's the second question for you. How does the First Amendment affect you? Well, protection of individual rights from government abuse is a critical part of limited government. You might remember in a previous lesson that we talked about limited government. There are 5 freedoms listed in the First Amendment, and they identify ways in which they affect our lives. The 5 freedoms include religion, press, speech, assembly, and petition. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or the press, or the right of people to peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Basically, this is saying that we have the right to have freedom of religion, to have freedom of press, to have the freedom of speech, and to have the freedom of assembly and petition. Now let's take a look at our rights and responsibilities. In addition to the First Amendment, which gives us those 5 freedoms that we just discussed, there are 9 other amendments that protect our freedoms and rights as individuals. Let's take a look at these, and let's start with the Second and Third Amendment. The Second Amendment allows you to have the right to bear arms. This means that you have the right to protect yourself and your property. The Third Amendment says that you have the right not to let soldiers live and eat in your house. I know it sounds a little crazy, but at one time, that was not a right that was guaranteed to people. So the Third Amendment was added to make sure that you have that protection. The Fourth Amendment says that you have the right not to have your home searched or your property taken without a good reason or without a search warrant. The Fifth Amendment has the right not to be tried for a crime without being accused of that crime, the right not to be tried for the same offense twice, the right not to testify against yourself, the right not to have your property or liberty taken away without going through the legal system, and the right not to have your property taken without a paid fair sum. Let's look at the Sixth and Seventh Amendments. The Sixth Amendment is referring to criminal trials. You have the right to have a speedy and fair trial, the right to know what you are being accused of and who is accusing you. You have the right to have a witness in your favor, and you have the right to have an attorney. The Seventh Amendment refers to civil suits. Usually civil suits are dealing with money, payment of damages, and you have the right to a jury trial if more than $20 is involved. Now let's look at the Eighth and Ninth Amendment. The right to have a reasonable bail set, and the right to not have cruel and unusual punishment inflicted for a crime. That's the Eighth Amendment. And the Ninth Amendment, are the rights listed here, are not the only rights that you have. And the 10th Amendment, well, it says all rights not given to the national government or denied to the states by the Constitution are reserved or belong to the states or to the people. So now let's look at what are the responsibilities of citizens. What are your responsibilities as a citizen? What responsibilities do you have at home, at school, or in your family? When I asked this question of my students here at Key Middle School, they came up with so many different responsibilities that they have. They really got into this question. They included go to school, get good grades, do dishes and chores like take out the trash, take care of your younger siblings or babysit, go to church, practice a sport or instrument, complete your homework. So when I asked them, why do we have responsibilities? What happens if you shirk your responsibilities? Shirk meaning if you just kind of ignore them. Well, you know what they said? They said there'll be consequences, Ms. Brown. You could get detention, you could be grounded, people will be disappointed in you, you're letting other people down. Things will not be taken care of, and it could cause problems and chaos for our community. So just as you have personal responsibilities, you also have additional responsibilities as a U.S. citizen. In order to maintain the rights guaranteed in the Bill of Rights, U.S. citizens have both required and expected responsibilities. So here's a question for you. What is citizenship? Well, citizenship involves the mere membership in a community. In a democratic republic, it requires active participation in government. In a democracy, citizens must be involved in their communities. The responsibilities of citizenship include things that we must do, like obey the law, and things that responsible members of our communities should do. So if we don't perform these legal obligations, we face punishment with fines or imprisonment. In addition to these duties of citizenship, there are certain additional active responsibilities that a good citizen should do. These responsibilities generally require both time and effort, but our democracy is based on active participation of its citizens. We will not be fined or imprisoned for failing to carry out these responsibilities. However, our democracy relies on its citizens carrying them out most of the time. Performing these is part of civic virtue, doing what is right for the community. So it's not always about what we want to do, but it's doing things that benefit all of us. All right, so now you have an authentic writing assignment that I want you to complete. You will have about 10 minutes or about 15 minutes to complete it. And so what I want you to do is I want you to create a public service announcement. You are the creative director for a local television station, and your boss has asked you to create a public service announcement about the rights and responsibilities of U.S. citizens. This PSA is meant to inform people about their rights and responsibilities and the importance of fulfilling their responsibilities. Your commercial should explain some of the rights listed in the Bill of Rights and two types of responsibilities, required and active. I have listed your must-haves in your So now your authentic writing assignment here is that you are going to create a public service announcement. You are the creative director for a local television station, and your boss has asked you to create a public service announcement about the rights and responsibilities of U.S. citizens. Your PSA is meant to inform people about their rights and the importance of fulfilling their responsibilities. Your commercial should inform or explain some of the rights listed in the Bill of Rights and two types of responsibilities required and active. Make sure that your PSA explains why it is important for citizens to take these responsibilities seriously. I have provided for you a list of must-haves below. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope that you've got a clear understanding of all of our rights and responsibilities, the First Amendment, and why we amended the Constitution. Most importantly, the idea that our founding fathers left this document opening up so that we could change it as our nation changes. My name is Monica Brown. I teach 8th grade social studies at Key Middle School. Bye.